All right, short, sweet, to the point. I always want to kind of start out with the father dream because that's the one that happened first. But I figure for the purpose of people, Jesus goes first. I think that's what people are a little more interested in. Stuff Sorrow was going down in Vegas, man. It's pretty casual at this moment. And that was that the same vehicle yesterday? Whatever the case may be, back to the story. I'm going to be sticking both times I met Jesus on here. I met him once. When I mean met, he showed himself to me. So my little two experiences, they were both in a dream. One was kind of metaphorical, but the other one was a little bit more literal. So the first time that I'd actually seen him, and I need to cross the street. First time I had seen him, and I can't do it with the cops right there. Fudge. First time I met him, I was just having a regular dream, and I was in this weird area where there's like a whole bunch of mountains and vegetation everywhere, and I was at the base of these mountains, just kind of making my way through them, and I walk upon this building that's in the middle of it all, which is kind of weird. But it's dreams. I don't know. It's dreams be like that. Whatever. Jaywalking. I'm a sinner. Sorry. And I walk inside this building, and I find this little elevator thingy that looks like it goes up, and it took me up to the second story. But once I hit the story, the entire scenery had freaking changed. It was like, I can't explain dream physics, it just is. It was kind of cloudy everywhere. The ground, kind of had like a fog to it, couldn't quite see through it, and there was like some lunch tables in this area, and there was a whole bunch of people, probably like 30, 40 people milling around. And so I'm there, I'm just kind of like, an interesting dream. And then, I kind of look to my left and I see Jesus, and I can tell you, if you ever have that kind of experience, you automatically know. There's no questioning. There's no doubt. I can tell you, if you ever see the guy and like 10 minutes later, you're like, you're kind of questioning yourself. It's like, no. Because when you're in the moment, there's a truth and reality about him that transcends even just like normal reality. So I see him, he's coming up, and I'm like, yo, like, this is the guy. Like, this is freaking Jesus. It's just, I imagine you've been following this guy for dang near 3 decades. You've had so many experiences. And then Jesus actually manifests himself to you. There's nothing like it. You don't forget it. But he comes over, and I'm like, whoa, it's him. I felt like a little kid again. But no, very simply, he comes over, and I'm like, he starts hanging out, talking to the other people, and I'm there, and I'm like, this is him. And I do not want to forget what this guy looks like, because I'm like, I have him right here in front of me. Like, I'm looking straight at his face, and I'm thinking like to myself in my head, like, memorize every little detail. Don't forget. And I remember I was looking into his eyes, and he was literally, the Bible's kind of accurate on this. He was literally glowing and shining. Like, it's like imagine being able to look into the sun, but without hurting your eyes. That's kind of what it was. And I remember this is also, there's spiritual stuff to this too. And I remember seeing in his face, and it was kind of changing in between, and like the purest expressions of like all the emotions you can think of. There was like a sternness one, there was like a wrathful one, there was like a joy and like a love, and like these were kind of just flicking in front of his face. And it's just, I can't explain this stuff, it just is what it was. But then I kind of like unfocused, and let's call it a Shekinah glory kind of pulled away a little bit. And if people are asking what he looked like, the Bible's accurate. They're like, what's his skin color and all that? one, I can tell you, he can show up to you as like a 90-year-old Chinese guy if he wanted to. But the skin that I saw, it was like it's like a bronze, it was like someone who was like very tan, very, very tan, with also like a hint of like bronze metal. Like, that's the best way I can describe it, which is kind of ironically how the Bible does, but it's like when you actually see it for yourself, you're like, oh, I get it now. And, so I see him, and it got to the point where I was actually laying down on my side in this area, and he was kind of like laying across from me. For some odd reason, the Holy Spirit didn't allow me to hear what we were talking about, but from what I gathered, he was sharing stories with me and some other people, and we were laughing, having a great time. And then I did get to hear one thing he said. So we're hanging out, and for some odd reason, I was allowed to notice this one detail. Apparently, he had come because he was coming to grab a group of people who had been waiting for him, and he was going to take them somewhere. I would presume heaven. I don't know. I don't know those details. But his time to kind of depart was there, and I'm standing up. And I remember seeing my little sister over to the left too. Weird detail. But Jesus standing up, and there's people that he's taken like right here, kind of like in a circle. And he looks at me, and I'm just kind of like having the time of my life. And the only thing I got to hear him say was he was looking at me and goes, "So, things aren't going to plan, eh?" And if you know me, you know my sense of humor is that like I like to give like friendly jabs with the homies. And that's kind of what he was doing, because at that point in time in my life, I was actively like doing, let's just say I was purposefully, what's the I word? Intentionally doing what I knew, what I wasn't supposed to be doing, because at that point in my life, I was like, screw this plan, life sucks, I'm gonna do what I want. So he knew what I was doing, and I knew that he knew, and yeah, my plan wasn't working out, and he knew that, so he's just kind of giving like a small little elbow to the ribs, like, so, things aren't going to plan, eh? And then he departs, and then I left the building, and it went back to a normal dream. So that was the first one. I'm kind of speeding through them, but I don't think people want an hour video. The second one was where I didn't get to see him. I was having more of like a metaphorical dream, because at this point, I was doing dextromethorphan, which is basically the cough suppressant and cough medications. And if anyone knows anything about drugs, they're not necessarily good for you. But I was having a dream where I was back home on Mustang Road, and we lived in a cul-de-sac. And I was walking down to the end of the cul-de-sac, and I remember just being so tired and so exhausted that actually I just laid down in the middle of the road at the end of the cul-de-sac, and like I couldn't find the energy to stand up. But then I could feel Jesus' presence. He came out of nowhere, and he picked me up from like under my shoulders, picked me up, set me on my feet, didn't let go of me. And he like kind of like directed my attention to the end of the cul-de-sac. It's where the road ends. And he's like, well, what did he exactly say? Because it was about when I was doing DXM at the time. It was just like, there's nothing for you going down this road. And so doing this drug that I was doing, he's basically letting me know, like, hey, it's a dead end, man. Now, whether he meant like it goes nowhere or that it could lead to a literal dead end, I don't know. I'm actually, and did I even stop after that dream? No, I didn't cut it completely. I'm still working on it, but that's neither here nor there. Straight at the dream. Actually, it's been about a week now, but back to the dream. And then I started walking away from the cul-de-sac, or the end of the dead end. I started walking back down towards Ann Road, and he was still carrying me. Like, I wasn't walking on my own power, but this time as I was walking, like, it was so easy that I felt like I weighed 10 pounds. And I remember how like easy this walk was, and Jesus once again said to me, like kind of behind me in my ear, was just like, hey man, my yoke is easy. And I remember kind of almost crying in the dream, because it's like, and I asked him, it's just like, what do you mean by easy? Because I've done what I've wanted to before. I've lived life where I've been submitted, and it's always a process of trying to better my walk with him, and I wouldn't necessarily say any part of my life has been easy, so I have no idea what he means by that, or at least the practical application of it, but we'll see. I'm still working on myself. But yeah, so those were my 2 meeting Jesus experiences. I'm about to pause this, and then I'll share, and I'll make another video for my meeting the Father one.